quiet period ends today in the Delphi double murder investigation. It has been more than 2 years now since the murders and 2 weeks since the release of new clues in the case. State police said they'd wait to say more until new tips came in and give time for the families to absorb the new information. Well, that period's passed now. State Police Superintendent Doug Carter is here. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Scott.
We've been reporting on Daybreak some 3,000, probably more now, tips have come in since the release of the new information. Is any of it different? Is any of it useful?
Well, it's all useful. It's all useful, and it's all, or at least the vast majority of it's different. Mm-hmm. So I'm thrilled with what's happened since then. We still have a lot of work to do, but we're not near done.
When we first got word, and it was on a Friday that we got word that there would be this new information, some of the things struck me as unusual. You invited the public to this. You weren't taking questions at that point, again, to wait those a little bit later. And then in that briefing, it seemed like you were speaking directly to whoever did this, with the sense that that person might even be in the room. Yes. Do you think that person was in the room?
I think if he wasn't in the room, he was close by, but I'm 100% convinced he was watching.
Why?
Because of all that's happened over these last 30 months, the information that we had received, the information that we knew, and I hope to one day be able to tell that story.
You said something during the briefing that struck me, that you feel like the investigators may have talked to him. Do you think that at some point or since then that one of your guys has gotten in front of this person and asked him questions? And if so, then how at that point did it not lead to an arrest, and how could it moving forward?
Well, I think it's likely. I think it's likely. There's a lot of opinions out there. There's a lot of subjective opinions. There's a lot of analysis being done, which we're trying to encourage folks to not do those kinds of side-by-side analysis. But I really believe that over time we're going to have an idea that we were onto something early on. But remember, this isn't a 43-minute TV show. We have to understand that's not just science, but it's also human intelligence, what people know. Somebody knows whose body that is, Scott. Somebody knows. If you take the head off of a person that you know, you'll recognize the body, whether it be your dad, your brother, your uncle, your friend, your neighbor, your coworker. That's the piece we're waiting on. And I believe that we'll get there. There is an extraordinary group of people up there that's doing this work, and I believe they're going to come to a successful resolution.
You mentioned the body and the release of video, and this is only 2 or 3 frames of video, but it shows the movement of the person. It's been asked, and I'm sure it's been asked of you as well, why not release that sooner? You knew right away you had a picture, but a picture is different than video. Why wait that long?
Yeah, a picture is different than video, and a sketch is different than a photograph. So you're right. You're absolutely correct. We'll be able to one day tell you what we know and why we didn't release it. We don't want to show our hand. We don't want to show the complete picture of what we know versus what we think. And we have to be very, very careful there. Remember, it's easy to give an opinion if you don't understand the factual basis for what we've done and why. And I don't mean that in a critical sense. But we have to protect the integrity of what we know. And, geez, we're going to stay at it.
The sketch, and to be clear, and you did clarify this after, but in case folks didn't hear it, you don't want them to look at both sketches anymore. You only want the newly released sketch, correct?
That's correct. But remember, a sketch is not a photograph.
Right.
It's something similar to a resemblance. And the likelihood of this being something between the two is probably pretty strong. But again, that's a subjective opinion based upon what I believe.
And certainly you've shown frustration at the killer, at the fact that it takes a long time sometimes to find this. The families have got to feel frustration as well. And one question that occurs to me, if they are fielding rumor that you've said you don't like, that you could head some of that off by sharing some of the grim things that a family shouldn't have to share. Why is it that we don't know how these girls died? Why is it that we don't know if, for instance, they were sexually assaulted?
Because only the killer knows that, and so do we. That's why. That's why, and you're right. It's the frustration for the family is something I can't even begin to fathom or understand. And we've tried very, very hard to stay connected with them, Scott, throughout this entire process. But remember, while people starve for information, particularly for sensationalized events like this, we can't show our hand. We just can't.
Will there be a point where things change? Because it's been 2 years, you've changed strategies now. You have to be looking down the horizon if you don't get the resolution you want. You may think it may be because people want to sensationalize things. I've heard from people very close to those families who say, we're tired of answering Facebook posts about, did this happen, did that happen?
Right. I can't understand their frustration, but we can stay connected with them. And I didn't mean sensationalism in a negative sense at all, because I'm thrilled about what you've done, what you've allowed us to do today, because this is why we'll be successful. This is why we'll be successful. But we can't turn this in to a wide open schematic of what we know and why. We just can't. But I believe that one day we'll be able to.
You've been involved in investigations that have led to convictions. You've been involved to some have ended in frustrating cold cases. Do you think someone will go to trial for this case someday?
Yes.
That's your Superintendent of the Indiana State Police, Doug Carter, talking about a very difficult tale. The Delphi double murders, Abby Williams, Libby German died just a little more than 2 years ago. We'll continue to look for more information as you can release it, and ask tough questions when necessary, but we appreciate you coming in to visit with us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Brandy?
That was from News 8 out of Indiana just last Thursday, when they had the Indiana State Superintendent Doug Carter on their show Daybreak. And I think a very interesting interview. One, it's not really providing us with any new information per se, but there is some more thought that he adds to things that they talked about when they did their press conference weeks ago. And so kudos to the Indiana State Police for staying involved with the media and being upfront with the media to keep this case alive and well. And as Doug Carter points out, that's how they're going to be successful. That's how they're going to nail the killer and connect him to the victims and to this crime.
Right. And he's stating that they don't want to show their hand, but I believe those comments basically let everybody know that they don't have DNA. If they're relying on somebody coming forward and saying, hey, I know that person, that is my brother, or that's my dad, or whatever, I would assume that they don't have DNA, because that would not be, if they had DNA, then that's what would be the nail in the coffin.
Well, what I think he might be saying there is there's still a chance in my mind that they may have DNA. They just have nobody to connect it to at this moment. Mm-hmm. And if that is in fact the case, you're right. It will be the DNA that will get the conviction of the killer.
Right.
But they might need, if they can't have it match with anything, they need the public's help to put them across the table from the right guy.
Right. But remember what he said. He said he believes that they have already talked to this individual.
Mm-hmm.
And if they already know who the individual is, then they could test that person's DNA.
But again, though, I also don't know that means that they know who this person is. Mm-hmm. I mean, they could say, we've spoke to, I don't know, pick a number between maybe 2,000 and 12,000 people.
Right.
This is how many people we've spoke to. Not everybody has submitted their DNA to us. Probably the majority have not. Some of them probably not even asked to do so.
Right.
And so now you have this pool of people, and you're still not 100% sure that you've spoke to this individual. Because I think what they were saying at the press conference was that they were under the belief that, they being law enforcement, were under the belief that they either have spoke to this individual or has spoke to someone or someone's close to him.
Right.
So,
well, it's also weird too, because there was a lot of rumors saying that there was this tone in the room, and just like that news anchor said, was he there? The belief from the police was that the person was there.
Yeah,
that was a rumor that was told, probably hours afterwards. And also you hear his demeanor there, very cool, calm, collected, not so much during the press conference.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you know what happened to these girls, you know how vicious that was, you know how sick and sadistic that is, and you know that this animal's possibly right in front of you.
And the rumor, so everybody's aware, the rumor that I heard, and I heard this through you actually, was that there was one or two persons in the room that they that law enforcement is quite suspicious of.
Right.
And I think that's pretty much the extent of the rumor, right?
Yeah, and the fact that they think, well, the rumor was that one or two individuals showed up, and when they did, there was a physical change in the room. And so it's almost like the cops knew those are our guys.
And to maybe expand on that rumor a bit, what I've heard, and I don't know if this part was from you or not, but I also heard that this individual or these individuals that were in the room for the press conference,
Mm-hmm.
that they may have been somebody that did not cooperate with the investigation. They didn't cooperate with police when they were spoke to.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult here, too, because it seems like, with the press conference and with this conversation here, that they're looking at one perpetrator.
Mm-hmm.
But then you hear these rumors that two men showed up.
Well, and then you have two very different sketches.
Yeah, and is that two men? And then now with the extra release of the audio footage, you have, it says like, hey guys, down the hill. And a lot of people think those are two different individuals. That one guy is saying, hey guys, or whatever he says, something guys, and then down the hill. And now a lot of people are coming out on social media saying those are two different voices. Again, we don't know what they have, so is there two people involved?
Mm-hmm. Well, and if they found two forms of DNA, different forms, even if they can't match them to anybody, they know that they're different. So maybe the police know, maybe law enforcement knows that it's actually two individuals. And that being something that only they and the killers would know.
And one of the things I can't get over is during the press conference when the superintendent, is that what?
Yeah, Doug Carter.
When he starts talking about some obscure movie, and he calls it The Cabin or something.
Right.
And it comes out of nowhere. There's no setup. He just kind of starts talking about this movie, and from what I heard, it's a kind of this weird religious movie where this girl is taken to a cabin and she's tortured, but it has something to do with religion. Like maybe she's tortured because of her religion. I'm not really for sure, but I keep going back to how weird that was in the press conference, and it's like, to me, that's
purposely done.
Yeah, it wasn't just
insert this in here.
Yeah.
Make sure you reference the cabin while you're up there talking.
Yeah, and there's a guy that is in custody. He's arrested. He's in jail now. There's some, I don't want to put too much out on the table, but there is a guy that's arrested. He's going to be charged with the murder of a girl that they tortured and left in a cabin.
Of a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his girlfriend, or possibly ex-girlfriend, lived in Delphi. He also worked on, I believe, Logan's property, the guy that found him. And he also changed his appearance pretty drastically 2 years ago. Went from curly hair to shaved head, had a goatee at one point. Now it's clean shaven. And we just know from the crime that he's going to be charged with, this guy is a piece of shit animal.
Yeah. His that case is of itself is a bit of a weird one, and there's not really a lot of information out there as to what they think happened or why.
Well, basically what they believe happened is that this girl did something, and this was like a revenge. But it's not just him that's involved. There's multiple people involved in helping him do this. I don't know if they actually were involved in the torture or the killing of her, but I know there were multiple people involved as far as the setup. And I believe there's 3 people that are arrested in connection with that case.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I didn't know if those people are thought to have been involved in the setup or if they were thought to have been involved in helping him run from the police.
Mhm.
But anyway, so the thing here that's interesting, they mentioned 3,000 or over 3,000 tips that have come in since the press conference.
Right.
Mostly different, as Carter points out. Also, he does say 100% he believes that if the killer was not in that room, then the killer was 100% watching the press conference on TV. He also references saying nearby. If he wasn't in the room, I believe he was nearby and watching.
Yeah.
Meaning they don't think that this individual has left the area. Talk to the killer. He said it's likely based off of what they know. But again, doesn't necessarily mean that they know who it was. And then the good reminder here to watch the walk, to watch the movement of the bridge guy in that video is what he really wants to point out there, saying, forget about the face. Look at the way that this guy walks.
In the face.
And if you know somebody that walks like that, we need that person's name. You need to come forward and give us that person's name. Now, regarding the different sketches, I've heard a couple rumors about this. And I don't know if this is just armchair detectives playing with some ideas and toying around with some possibilities.
Yeah.
Or if it's actually, sometimes there's truth in rumor. So when I say a good rumor, that's what I mean. But the rumor that I have heard or read somewhere, and I can't recall where I found
Can't
this.
remember crap today.
But I don't have any information in front of me. I have one half page of notes, and
Can't
that's
remember.
it. Plus, with some of the stuff, we never know where the conversation's going to go. But regarding the separate sketches, the very obvious different sketches.
Yeah.
The rumor that I saw was that this one of the sketches, and I don't know which one that they're referencing, because I think where I found this, different people were saying it was the first sketch, and then other people were saying it was the second sketch. But what they were saying is that one of these sketches is not of somebody that they fully believe to be the killer. Not necessarily the man that they have video of on the bridge.
Right.
But it's somebody that was spotted by other people in the area at the time. It's somebody they would like to talk to, not necessarily meaning that he is the killer. But it also does not mean that he could not be the killer. This is somebody that was seen in the area, and I think it was multiple reports or multiple eyewitnesses that said they saw this guy that looked like this in the area the day of.
And it could be, let's say, a friend of the perpetrator, right?
Right. Or it could be somebody that saw something and for whatever reason they've not come forward. But like you
Right,
said,
or acquaintance. It'd be more likely that the person somehow knew the person that's responsible.
or somehow involved.
Right, and says, but let's just say that they know he wasn't involved, right? But you're friends with a sicko, or you knew a sicko, and he just did this. There's some people that go, hey, I'm minding my own business. I don't want to have somebody come back on me. And that's very possible. Just did an interview for this other podcast, and it was they talked about a Columbus case, and I won't mention the name because basically you have a guy that does not live in Columbus, worked in Columbus, but took a trip to Columbus, and he's found dead in his car, shot multiple times. And there is a lot of speculation that he was lured there by somebody he was seeing. And the family doesn't really want to discuss that or put that out to the public because they're afraid of retaliation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the biggest lead that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, So who knows about this the sketch, because that's very confusing. Is it the same guy and it's just a bad sketch, or are there different people?
Well, here's what I wonder, because he does reference something Doug Carter references in this interview where he says, we may have been going down the right path or something like that. He says, we may have been going in the right direction early on, and then we shifted gears onto something else.
Right.
He references that in some form. And what I wonder is that kind of the thought with the sketch, where now we have this new sketch.
Yeah.
Before we had the old one.
But it's technically not a new sketch, though.
Let's say that early on they were looking for somebody that looks like the new sketch, that it wasn't new to them, that they've had this for a while.
We know it wasn't.
Right.
It's a 2-year-old sketch. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody's denying that. What I'm saying though is there a chance that they were looking for somebody that looks like this sketch that is new to us, the public, at one point early on in the investigation? And then once they got the footage and the picture, did they then shift gears, and the sketch that we thought to be the original was made from the footage? And is there a chance that he's saying, is that kind of revealing the fourth wall or whatever they say, that it could be, this is the guy we probably should have been looking for all along, but the sketch that came out is based off of the footage, but it could just be a bad sketch.
Yeah. And then also they want to know with the gait and the walk of this individual. Again, we don't know if that's the perpetrator or not, right? I mean, they're not clear on that.
Not 100%. And again, another rumor that I heard, and I think we've talked about this before, was that, you have to wonder, what did the girls consider to be the threat level before this individual approached them?
Right.
Did they already feel threatened at one point, enough to the point where they started videotaping and taking pictures on their phone? Because that's the rumor I heard, that somebody was following them around.
Right.
And at some point they got weirded out and they're like, we're going to take some video of this creepy guy that's following us around.
Right.
Because something had to prompt that, unless it's just playing on your phone and you happen to catch that person.
Yeah, but
it seems strange.
Yeah.
It seems like there must have been some threat level for them to decide to be extremely brave and capture that person's likeness on their phone.
Right, but it could be happenstance, because look, the universe works in mysterious ways, where they just go, "Hey, here's these two girls playing on their phone," and they capture information that could lead to solving their murders. And I fully believe in that. And I think I do like the demeanor of the superintendent. I do like, I think he's saying the right stuff. I mean, again, they're in a very difficult situation, and he says, 3 or 4 times? I hope that one day we can explain what we know. And that's the tough thing, is how much do you give to the public, and how much does that hurt your case? And at the end of the day, this sick individual, this animal, needs to be locked up. And we have information that we can't give that might even bring us to the guy, but we can't give that because then we got nothing. Again, I'm leaning on no DNA. And the reason why I'm leaning on no DNA, because you could give more if you had DNA. If you had DNA, you could give more, because, hey, this is the time of CSI. And if you have DNA that matches, well, those would become a little more open and shut cases. So, and of course, they could argue, well, you got my DNA because of whatever reason, but it's interesting. But to me, this conference seems like, or this news clip or whatever, it seems that they are getting closer, that stuff is happening. He seems a little more sure of what they're doing.
Well, and to be clear on something too that you were talking about just a minute ago, when we covered this case 2 years ago, one thing that we pointed out, and this was ripped from the newspaper articles from the local newspapers, and one thing that I found very interesting was a statement of the guy in the video. The man that you see in the video is considered a suspect in this double homicide. And then there's other statements where they say the audio that you're hearing, the voice that you're hearing in this audio is the killer of the two girls.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. That's interesting in the fact that, you know, what we're kind of talking about here, that the bridge guy who we have video of may not be the same guy later heard talking.
Yeah, that's very different vocabulary.
I think it is. I don't want to discourage anybody out there from coming forward and telling us who this bridge guy is. So
I don't know, because it seems like, look, he just said, take the head off. And that's a brother or a father or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to be one of the keys to cracking this case. So it doesn't matter if that's the perpetrator or not. He's telling you, we need to know who the fuck this guy is.
Right. We need both. We need both guys, or if they are the same, we need that information. Do you recognize the walk? Do you recognize the voice?
Well, and somebody is sitting there, and that's what's so sick about this world, is that there's not just one. I bet there's 5, 10 people that have saw that and they been too scared to call. Or they've brushed it off. They brushed off a feeling. The universe works in mysterious ways, but that universe is telling you, you know who that son of a bitch is, and you need to call. And it's sad that a lot of people go, well, that's none of my business. And I believe
I don't know that a lot of people would say that.
No,
I think that's painting a very bleak picture of humanity. I think
that's how it works.
We can have different opinions.
No.
And this is an opinionated statement that you're making.
Nope, it's not factual.
That most people would choose to say nothing in the double homicide of children.
Yeah, and murders in general. And like
most people with information in a homicide case won't come forward because they are scared or they're just a piece of shit themselves.
Yeah, that's what I believe. And look,
but again,
when my friend was murdered on 11th Avenue, and they had
you
no
say
clues.
That's how it works, but then you say this is what I believe. That's not the same thing. It's an opinionated statement that you're giving. I'm giving a different opinion of I actually think that most people are good people, and most people want to help, especially in horribly tragic situations like this.
Again, the people that have this feeling, those people aren't awful people. They have this feeling, and they just too scared, whether it's a retaliation, whether it's about being wrong, right? I just think that is the normal state, right? You have that side, and then you do have the piece of shit people that go, I don't want to get involved. This is none of my business. And that's a big difference between somebody not wanting to get it wrong. Tell the police. If it's your brother, let's say, or if it's your father, or if it's a cousin or whatever, and he's not the killer, well, he'll get set free right? If they have DNA evidence or whatever. But I think I do think that there's two states of that. And I think there's a lot of people that have gut feelings. But again, our system is not perfect. So what if you're the guy that calls and says, man, this kind of, not 100%, but 75%, this looks like my cousin. And next thing you know, your cousin's arrested and he's in jail, and then he's on death row, and you can't get him off, and maybe he's not the right guy. So, but I think you'd be surprised how many people know about things that never state anything and never tell on anybody.